Hello, it's Brendan Young reporting for the Fatima Center's Rapid Response Team, Sunday, August 25th, 2018. I've returned a little while ago from the Papal Mass held in Phoenix Park. It seems that there were quite fewer people in attendance than expected. 500,000 tickets were distributed, and it seems that just a little over a fifth of that number was present. I attended myself, as much as I didn't want to. I'm not a fan of modern papal events, as you have probably figured out by now, and I'm not a fan of crowds, and I'm not a fan of the Novus Ordo, but I still attended to be able to report to you about what took place. I had an excellent seat. I was a few dozen feet away from the sanctuary. I was seated behind the choir in the bleachers just adjacent to the altar. I arrived a few hours early, and so I was able to see firsthand of what was going on and people's reactions, people's actions. And while everyone, or almost everyone, was very happy, was drawn toward the Pope Mobile, was excited to see the Holy Father in Ireland and to get fairly close up to him, a general sense of, we can say, a lack of seriousness was there. A lack of substance was there. People treated the Mass not as the holy sacrifice that it is, but as a kind of sporting event, or a concert, or some other popular gathering. Even the choir members that I was sitting near, they were swaying back and forth, some of them like it was a kind of concert. There was no substance, really. There was no sense of the sacred. There were very few people who weren't on their phones at some time or another during the Mass. The Mass itself was a typical Novus Ordo liturgy, celebrated more or less according to the rubrics of the new Mass, but it was itself compromised in its own right, you might say, because the Holy Father took the opportunity to personalize what is now known as the penitential rite. So instead of the Confiteor, he led this kind of litany asking for forgiveness in Spanish. So it seems that this litany was of his own writing, from his own hand, asking for forgiveness for the abuses at the hands of priests and religious in Ireland. And he had promised the survivors of abuse that he had met with yesterday, the Saturday, August 25th, that he would say something today, and so that's what he did. The Mass itself was served by altar girls. There were a woman functioning as boat bearer, and another girl, a smaller girl, not only one, but two or three, who functioned as torch bearers. Communion was distributed in the hand. In fact, I would say the vast majority of communions today were in the hand, reaching across typical sacrileges that you see at such events. So the Papal Mass wasn't as well attended as it should have been, because of protests. Some protesters had gotten a large number of tickets with the intention, rather, of not showing up. And then the weather was very bad, it was dismal, it was raining, it was damp, it was windy, it was cold or chilly, and so that might have kept some from attending in person as well. So this papal mass was quite disappointing. The homily in Italian I could understand, it was really without much substance, and it was announced at the end of the liturgy that the next World Meeting of Families would be held in 3 years' time in Rome. I don't have much good to say about this event. I don't think that there's anything really positive about it. Before the Mass, I should mention, there were these kind of reflections or meditations or descriptions, whatever you want to call them, of the family life of the Martins, the family of Saint Therese of the Child Jesus and of the Holy Face, or of Lisieux, the Little Flower, and her parents, Saints Louis and Zélie Martin, whose relics were present for the event. So these reflections were read, and it was said that the greatest joy of parents, including Saints Louis and Zélie, particularly Louis, because Zélie had died, when his 4 surviving children, his five daughters rather, but 4, because Céline entered Carmel after her father's death. But his 4 children, Pauline, Marie, Thérèse, who entered Carmel, and Léonie, who had tried her vocation first as a Poor Clare, and then as a visitandi nun. She also went back to religious life after her father died, but this reflection or whatever said that Saint Louis Martin was so happy because his daughters were happy, his daughters were fulfilled. Not that they were holy, not that they were happy because they were living the traditional religious life, but simply because they were happy. But I can be happy doing any number of things. That might not be real happiness, that might be really an empty happiness or a baseless happiness, or a happiness only on a human or secular level. But forget the holiness, forget the faith of your children. No, as long as they're happy, they can be doing whatever they want, believing whatever they want, and that's okay. So you see that this kind of mentality is very prevalent, it's very present even in these so-called Catholic or papal events. And that's the unfortunate reality. We're dealing now with several generations who don't know their faith, and we're dealing with a pope and bishops who don't care. At the end of the day, they don't care. And you can say, well, how can you say that? How can you judge? Well, it's evident. They're not teaching, they're not giving us real substantial teaching, preaching, the Catholic faith of all time. They're giving us fluff. They're giving us empty, banal things and on-the-spot products like the new Mass and these newfangled catechisms called UCAT that were distributed at the World Meeting of Families. So all in all, this World Meeting of Families, and as also referenced in the closing remarks of the Mass today, was just this kind of fruition, kind of promotion of Amoris Laetitia, as I've mentioned in earlier reports. It wasn't of much good to at least the vast majority of attendees. And of course, how could it be good at all to anyone? Because it promoted serious errors. It promoted disorder. It promoted immorality. It promoted sacrilege. It promoted heterodoxy and heresy. So at the end of the day, what can we say about all of this in our final report from Our Lady's Rapid Response Team to you back home? This event was a failure. It was a failure because it failed. It did not present the true Catholic faith. It was a failure because it didn't encourage the study or the living out of the true doctrine of the Church. especially regarding morality, especially as regarding the Catholic family as it should be. And it was a failure on a secular, that is to say on a human level, on a human note, because it wasn't very well attended. The Pastoral Congress, as well as these other events, in what should be one of the most Catholic of countries, the attendance was poor, proportionately speaking. It was a failure because Ireland, as I've just mentioned, now accepting abortion, now accepting same-sex marriage, etc., wasn't really interested in the Pope. As I've just said, the attendance is so poor. Just over a fifth of the ticket holders showed up. So what can we do? What can we do at this failure of an event presided by a Pope now surrounded by scandal, a Pope now credibly accused of reinstating a molesting cardinal to the public life of the Church, to not only the celebration of the sacraments, but to speaking and traveling and acting in the Pope's own name as his personal representative in different parts of the world. What can we say? What can we do? Humanly speaking, the Church is finished. Humanly speaking, there's nothing that we can do. Society will continue to deteriorate and collapse. The Church will continue to deteriorate and collapse. And that's now, that collapse, that failure is now more imminent than ever before in the history of the Church. We're left hopeless, almost. We're left helpless, almost. We know what we must work and pray for. The consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary by the Pope and all of the Catholic bishops, together at the same time. All of them, no exceptions, just as Our Lady requested. And we, what must we do, the lay faithful? We must do penance, and we must pray more fervently, more faithfully than ever before. From our daily rosary, to wearing the brown scapular, to making the 5 First Saturdays, to dressing modestly, doing all of this, our daily duty especially, because it is only in our own fidelity, in our own fervor, that we will gain the graces necessary for the Pope to finally do what he must, that solemnly commanded and never rescinded by Our Lady in 1929. Please remember that you are not alone, but you are joined spiritually by countless other Catholics throughout the world. Catholics like you who live and love their faith taught to them with true catechisms by real popes, that is, popes doing their duty. Popes who always guarded and protected and defended the faith, the Catholic faith, and not some diluted or heretical version of it. For more information on how you can live the Fatima message in your own life, and how you can get others, loved ones, friends, and even acquaintances, and even those that you don't know, strangers, to know more about Fatima and to obey Fatima, to love Fatima, visit our website, www.fatima.org, and please have a look at our other videos on this YouTube channel, youtube.com/the Fatima Center. I would like to thank you on behalf of the rest of the Rapid Response Team and all of the staff and volunteers of the Fatima Center in Canada, in the United States, and in Ireland for all of your prayers and for all of your generous support, your sacrifices, your financial gifts, in making our quest, first and foremost, to make reparation to Almighty God and His Blessed Mother, and then to distribute our literature, needed now more than ever, to those in attendance at this event, and to report on it for you back home. Thank you, and be assured of our prayers for you, your special intentions, and all of your loved ones, especially those away from the faith or those who don't want to listen to what you have to say about Fatima. Thank you again, and God bless you.